Multiply the exponential functions m of x equals 2 to the x minus 3 minus 1 and n of x equals 2 to the x plus 3 plus 1 using the laws of exponents to simplify the resulting equation for p of x. Verify the relationship between the factors and the product by observing a table of values generated by each of the functions. Okay, so to find p of x, then we know that's just going to be m of x multiplied by n of x, and then we can just plug in our equations here. So m of x is 2 to the x minus 3 minus 1, and n of x 2 to the x plus 3 plus 1. And then we can multiply together and distribute these terms. So 2 to the x minus 3 times 2 to the x plus 3, and we'll simplify that in a minute. And then we have another term, so we can just add that, 2 to the x minus 3 times 1, and then we have negative 1 times 2 to the x plus 3, and finally we have negative 1 times positive 1. Oh, well, okay, so plus negative 1 times positive 1. So I'm simplifying this out, then we'll have the same base 2, and then we'll multiply the exponents, which is just the same thing as adding them. And then on the next one, we have just 1 times 2 to the x minus 3, which is just 2 to the x minus 3. And then we have plus negative 1 times 2 to the x plus 3. And so that's the same thing as just 2 to the x plus 3, but it's going to be a minus or a negative. So it's minus 2 to the x plus 3. And then we have negative 1 times 1, which is just negative 1, which is the same thing as minus 1. So then we can simplify our exponent here. It'll be 2, and then x plus x is 2x. And then negative 3 plus 3 is just 0. So it's just 2 to the 2x. And then even though on these other ones they're very similar terms, has the same base, but we have a different exponent, so we cannot combine those. And so our final answer for p of x will be 2 to the 2x plus 2 to the x minus 3 minus 2 to the x plus 3 minus 1. So let's go ahead and look at a table and just compare and make sure that all of our values are what they should be here. So I'm going to get out my calculator here. Okay, so to use the calculator to find these values quickly, then you can just press the y equals button. And I've actually already gone ahead and put in m of x and n of x into my y1 and y2, making sure to put the x minus 3 in parentheses and x plus 3 because those were exponents. And otherwise, your calculator doesn't recognize that that whole thing is an exponent. Also, if you have a different version of calculator, like a TI-84, it may already do that for you. But let's go ahead and then in y3, we'll put in m of x times n of x. So basically just copy what we have above, except for we're going to put this whole thing, the entire m of x in parentheses, and then the entire n of x in parentheses. Okay, so I just typed in m of x in parentheses, and then now n of x. And then for y4, then we're going to put our answer that we got. So we got 2 to the 2x, make sure to put it in parentheses, plus 2 to the x minus 3 minus 2 to the x plus 3. Oh, I didn't put parentheses, so. And then we had minus 1. Okay, so then now press second graph or for the table. And basically this just gives you our x values and then y1, which we put in m of x, and then y2 is n of x, y3, which was m of x times n of x, and then y4, which is the answer that we got algebraically. And so you see here that we can compare all the values. And the most important thing is that m of x times n of x, which is our y3, matches our y4, which was our product that we actually got algebraically, and we can see that those do match. So now I do have a table for you that I've made, just copy these values into so we can view them as a full table. So we've got x values 0 through 4, and then what we have, I just used my values from the calculator and plugged these in to each of these columns. And we see that we do have the same, the things that we're checking for there are that we have the same answers for m of x times n of x as we do for p of x. Those should be the same, and they are. And they were in our calculator as well that we just saw. So our final answer then will be this table. And then also the product of m of x and n of x is p of x equals 2 to the 2x plus 2 to the x minus 3 minus 2 to the x plus 3 minus 1.